Afternoon, thank you so much for staying. It's been great, hasn't it? So, my name's Crocker, I'm an artist. In June 2022, I was told that I'd got 6 to 12 months to live with esophageal cancer that had gone down to my liver. And in December 2024, I was told that there was no evidence. Hi guys.
Hi, sorry.
December 24, no evidence of active cancer. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is what I did, how the OU helped me, my history and life history before diagnosis, the diagnosis, then what I did and what happened, with no causality. I am not claiming that anything that I did caused the outcome. However, I am here, and I shouldn't. So I think it's unethical of me not to help others that are in the same position. So, and then in the last part, after we've gone through those two, I'm going to open it to you to come back to me, evaluating what I've said, and then helping me to say, David, this could be useful here, this would be an appropriate way to take it forward. June 2022, December 2024. The yellow stuff is active cancer. Where the yellow stuff is, that is my liver. This is my liver now. So I initially had pains in my kidneys, and I thought it was from the kidneys. And then I thought it wasn't. And then he showed me this slide when he told me the good news. Can you see my kidneys being crushed? That's what was happening. OU memories. I studied the Open University in the early 90s and graduated in 1999. I, at the time, was a father with twins and a daughter of 4. And I was studying psychology at Open University. So every day was a revelation. I was just coming across things and going, oh, that's what that is. But at the same time, as I got nearer to TMAs, something else would come into my head. And it's what I'm about to play you. Now, I was looking for the OU theme tune because we used to have telly. And I think it went something like this. Okay, so that's been true of my story. Okay, but it's what inspired me with the OU. I came to love, not knowing. I came to love, not knowing, because I knew I'd find something out. And when we look at my story, people don't know. But I'm hoping that we can find something out. I remember distinctly doing DSEO too, and if you remember, those of you that like me do it at the same time, there was a wonderful book called Children's Minds by Margaret Donaldson. And in her mind, she was basically looking at Piaget and the development, and she quotes a quote from Laurie Lee. And the quote goes something like this. Did you have a good day at school, dear? No. Why not? They didn't give me the present. What do you mean they didn't give you the present? I said, well, they said they were going to give me a present. Well, I'm sure they didn't. They did. They said, you're Laurie Lee, aren't you? And I said, yes. And they said, well, sit there for the present. And I did. And I sat there all day and I never got a present. So the thing I liked about that was it showed that both sides were true. They both got it right, okay? But we pursue that the child's being silly, not necessarily. Second extension of that, I had to do an experiment, a TMA with my children. I asked my 2 7-year-olds what words were made of, and they said letters. Happy with their answer. I carried on. I asked my 4-year-old what words were made of, and she said car. She was absolutely right. She was 4 years old. She was going to nursery, and all her words were up on the ceiling, around the floor, and all made of card. And I'd failed to see the world from her perspective, and she was right. all the 4-year-olds' words are made of colour. There's a principle that I love in art called the beholder's share. And there's a guy who proposes that the study of art should be psychology. And he says it's because of this, that a painting isn't finished until the viewer sees it. It's obvious. So if I do one painting and 100 people see it, it's 100 different paintings. And that's a luxury for an artist. I only had to paint one painting. And on this related theme of seeing the world differently and our viewpoints, I love a quote in a book by Beau Lotto, who's a neuroscientist, and he's interested in perception. And he says, imagine you're walking down the street one day, and one evening, and all the street lights are out except for one. And as you come up to it, you can see someone on their hands and knees, clearly looking for something. So you get up to them, you say, have you lost something? They go, yeah, I dropped my key. And you go, well, whereabouts? And I help you look. And they go, over there, pointing about 40 yards away. So you say, why are you looking here? And they say, because it's the only place I can see. So we'll go back before June. I was first told that I got cancer in Christmas, or I got the pains in Christmas 2021. They then found something in my liver and then the esophagus later. But when I spoke to him, I said, what's the problem? He said 6 to 12 months. I said, okay, what's the chance of being an outlier? And he looked at me and he said, David, it's not worth thinking about, it's less than 1%. So with the bell curves that we've seen this week, both Neil's and Sarah's, in my mind I had this bell curve. This is the bell curve, this is June 2022, and that's me over there. But I'm still going to die at July 2023, but that's my bell curve. The next thing that I had to do was to tell my family, and that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I'd hidden it up to this point, but yeah, never forget that. The next thing that I did, most people wouldn't do, I put a post out on Facebook, and I said to them the story, and said, I just fed up with lying and not being honest with you, and giving excuses as to why I'm not turning up in places. And I want us, the next time that we meet, is on the same terms. And you know that it might be the last time we're together. And the response was amazing. And if you talk about, and I walk back, bad things with social media, the friends that helped me wouldn't be there. Not a chance. So one of them told me about Penny Bron. So Penny Bron are a brilliant charity down in Bristol that give immediate support. You just got to tell them that you've got cancer, they're straight in, you have to prove it, and they're straight in with helping you. You get different things that you can turn up and do, yoga, mindfulness, you get a nutrition consultant, all free. And you even get another consultant if your consultant knows and gives permission. Right. So, the day after they told me in May, I sat down and wrote on a piece of paper, and I do not know where this came from, it was just my intuition. Diet, exercise, reduce stress. And this is where the first bit of the OU comes in. It's all right, Mr. Johnny Nash saying there's more questions than answers, and the more I find out, the less I know. I needed to know. At this point, this is not messing about now. I've got 6 to 12 months to live. I need accurate information. And of course, there's a sound of trumpets coming over the hill because it's the OU. David, do you remember all that time in TMAs when you had to evaluate something, or compare it with this, or contrast it with that, or that skill that they'd given me? Bang, it was right in. And it even mentioned occasionally applied. So you'd get a TMA and it said, well, has this been applied? So that was my criteria, is my criteria, it remains my criteria. What works for me? Okay? When I'm helping other people, I tell them that they've got a completely different criteria. What works for them? But it must work and it must be for them. And they're the experts in them, like I'm the expert in me, and like you are all the experts in yourself. It's why doctors ask you, how do you feel today? Okay? Will you equip me to know to do all of this? No, I came across this wonderful person. So she's Kelly Turner in America, a doctor, and she went looking at the outliers. And she's now looked at thousands of people who are out of the system that got better. And her research was, what did you all do? All interviewed openly and then analysed. And she identified 10 factors that I'll show you at the end that were done to some degree or other by all outliers. So I had 12 of the strongest chemotherapy that you can have. It's called Folfox. You're not legally allowed to give any more after. So that's me in the toilet at the chemo room taking the photo. This is the thing that you used to have to take home with you for 2 days, and it pumps chemo into you while you're kipping all day long. Not nice when you get a kit, right? You're constantly thinking that this thing's going to fall off. Anyway, so that was the regime that I was going through, 12 batches of that. I think this is fascinating, but these are just my ideas, okay? It's just my observation. I had, for those that are old enough, the I Spy book of side effects. The I Spy was a book where you ticked everything off. I had a lot, except for one. I've had these hairy hands and arms since I was 13 years old, and I thought, well, at least the chemo will get rid of that. Did it fairy cakes, right? So not a chance, right? But I had a whole lot of the rest. One lot of chemo, I'm getting a whole lot of side effects, but very mild. I have the second lot of chemo, they all go away, except for one, which was touching when you touch something cold, you get a reaction. But it was very mild, it was much milder than the first time. What was going on there? Right, so a lot of this that I'm telling you today is about me creating a self that is a belief that will act as a placebo. If I believe I'm going to get better, I'm doing that placebo's work. I'm creating my own placebo. So the stories that I tell you now, some of them might have a hint of truth in them, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to come up with them, but they're not scientifically proved, but they're just my ideas, what I have in my head. So why would, when nothing else has changed, would a side effect be there and then go away? I used to talk to my cancer, who was talking about people talking daily, right, or whatever. So my conversation between my unconscious, it was my unconscious said, we've got to tell stupid humans something's going on here, I don't know what the hell's happening. He's put something in his body that we need to tell him about. That's what I see as a side effect as, it's telling conscious humans something's going on, we can't deal with it in the unconscious. And the reason I frame it like that is because the minute it went away, I thought it's dealing with it. My body is now happy with this chemo. It might not be over the moon, but it's not annoyed enough to tell me about it. That was how I framed it. All right? So then this is also fascinating. This is about information and the timing of information. One of the side effects that I got was my neutrophils would drop down low. When your neutrophils are down low, they can't do chemo. They won't do chemo. Get below 1.3, 1.2, they won't do chemo because your neutrophils are your healing mechanism. Is that roughly right? I understand in white blood cells, right, so because they go low, they won't do the chemo. So I'm thinking, and I come up with, I research different strategies, and trust me, this is one of the other things about my story. There are lots of different things being done in other places in the world that aren't done here. I had to find them out. So this sort of clashed with my diet, but I had to make these sort of decisions, which was the most important, my diet or bringing honey in. So live male honey from Australia, 70 quid for a jar like that, it's supposed to increase your neutrophils. So I tried that. I also tried mistletoe therapy. Mistletoe therapy is used in over 50% of cases in Germany. As a matter of the NHS, they get mistletoe therapy. Don't use it here. That is also supposed to deal with white blood cells and neutrophils. So I took that. And then the last one that I took, which is mini trampoline. Right? Mini trampoline is supposed to help your immune system and up the white blood cells and the neutrophils. And in fact, to the point that before I was going through the bloods, I'd be on the trampoline and get in the car and drive up. And the nurse said, well, that's not very clever, it's giving a false reading. And I said, not if I'm doing it every hour. So, however, I stopped the live male honey and I stopped the mistletoe because I didn't think they were working. And you'll see later how I measured this. But I kept going with the trampoline. But I saw this in November last year. So we've been through this part. I can't deal with me. It's a problem. It's a bad thing in my head. And then I see in a book called How Your Mind Heals Your Body by Dr. David Hamilton, who was in the drugs industry and realised, hang on, the placebo is just as effective as the drugs. I'll go and work for them. So he went into that world. And he's written a book about it. So this is my neutrophils. Now I was getting this data. They'll give you the bloods, and I was doing these charts, right? So here's my neutrophils up here. That's the start of the chemo, and they died. And I do something's working, but it's getting below that line. In Hamilton's book, he said they were doing some visualizations to try and up their immune system. So they had a study, proper research study done with control groups to see would visualization up the neutrophils. And they proved it in other visualizations, but in this particular experiment, it didn't work. And in fact, they went down. And it was a surprise result for the researchers. And the researchers said, oh, well, this is due to marginalization and chemotaxis. Marginalization and chemotaxis is when the neutrophils leave the bloodstream, go to the place where they're needed, and do the work. So I was knee-deep in pennies as they were dropping from the sky. But I did think, is this a bit like having your cake and eating it? However, it offered a potential explanation for that. What would I have done had I known that information at that time? Would I have taken the mistletoe? Would I have had the life now? So it's a real issue about this information. This is where I'm going to really get emotional already, because I know what's coming. So I put an email up on a Facebook post up saying, these are people I thought I'd never see again, right? So I put this post up saying, I'm coming down to Plymouth, and I just said, I'm going to be here, right? And I thought most of them will see me in the pub, and I'll have to drink water, but that'll be fine. But I got to Pier 1 just before 8 o'clock, and there's a girl who I knew because she worked in the same. We know the best of friends, right? But I knew her from an art group, and she said, hi David. I said, hi. She said, you knew that I had cancer, didn't you? I said, yes, I did. She said, oh, I had to get here first to say welcome to your new beautiful life. Okay. And as you go on, you'll see something later. She was absolutely right. The thing which I now don't want to lose because I've got good results, you have a different way of looking at the world. So, what I did then, because I thought this was I wanted to create a memorial. So I took a lot of photos of me with one person. That's my brother. But with all my friends that I met, I was going to put a little note underneath for my family and say, this is my, my Gary or somebody else, and he was important to me because. So as an artist, I thought this was a great idea to try and create my life with really important single friends who meant something to me. I can't stay and watch this. Okay. So, but it's not now a memorial. It's a celebration at the moment. It will be a memorial one day. Okay.
Just a perfect day. Drink sangria in the park. Then later, when it gets dark, we go home.
Just a perfect day. Feed animals in the zoo. Then later, a movie too. And then home. Oh, it's such a perfect day. I'm glad I spent it with you. Such a perfect day. You just keep me hanging on. You just keep me hanging on. Just a perfect day. Problems are left alone. Weekenders on our own. It's such fun.
Just a perfect day. You made me forget myself. I thought I was someone else, someone good.
Oh, it's such a perfect day. I'm glad I spent it with you. Such a perfect day. You just keep me hanging on. You just keep me hanging on.
You're gonna read just what you say.
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 Okay, so I wrote the things that you're about to get into those three areas: exercise, mindfulness, reduce stress, and diet. They're not, as Fred would have said, I'll tell you why. If any fool tries to say these things offer in isolation, of course they don't offer. I'm not suggesting they do, but I've just conveniently put them into those boxes. But there's some that don't fit into boxes. Like yoga or Tai Chi, is it mindfulness, is it exercise, right? So there's some that I've put into a box that just happen to be there. So the first one is exercise. What I'm going to do to you is just show you it, but then I don't want you to be distracted. But it gives you an idea of what I included as exercise, right? And I would have a daily schedule, an Excel sheet, week for the week, and I would look at each day and I would tick, have I done that, have I done that? So when you said about planning holidays and moving house, right? This was building a house, right? So this is just exercise. So, and I would then go and make sure I was doing something. Stretching I would do occasionally, that was important. Weights I would do every other day, but about an hour and a quarter, that's all, every day, but it was every day. Right, we are now coming on to the really controversial area. Okay, I'm going to talk about bits that I did. I'm not saying causality, but be aware that if I took notice of all the things that you're not supposed to eat as a cancer patient, I'd have turmeric, broccoli, maybe a bit of cauliflower. And there are counter diets, so there is a grass-fed diet. There was a brilliant study done over in China looking at rates of death from cancer. Excellent study, done a long time ago. And then you'll see the other competing ones. So it's a minefield, but just take on board what I did and then come to your own conclusion, if that's okay. Right, before I was diagnosed, I thought I was pretty ordinary. Right? I ate pizza, ice cream, fish and chips. I was that person that Sainsbury's could control. Right? I am now, it's got no chance. I see a Just Eat sticker on a train, really want to watch me get up and go, try growing it, then you can cook it, then eat it. That's, for me, is the biggest problem with this. We evolved eating local food at a time that it was available. So anyway, that's how and also drinking. No, I am not, for 1 minute, if I could carry on drinking without the added on behaviour of the drinking, I would drink. But I know that my behaviour would change when I'm drinking. And I wouldn't be able to do all the things that you're going to see on the schedule. I go, oh, that'll do tomorrow. I've heard this all the weekend. Right? I know that if I drank, I would be more vulnerable to not finishing off my schedule. So the reason I don't drink is because I can do that. Let's put this up and then so a friend told me about fasting and the ketogenic diet, and the logic behind it is, the argument behind it is that when you're in ketosis, then your glucose goes down, your ketones goes up. Cancer needs glucose or anything associated with it, and it doesn't like ketone. That's the simple logic. And there's a thing called a ketone mojo, which I would measure my glucose and my ketone, and I would know where to put it. That's the logic. It's been backed up by a bloke called Dominic D'Agostino, who has done research on mice where they're combining it with hyperbaric oxygen, and it exaggerates the effect. But please, these findings are not liked by some people at all. I'm alive though, right? So, yeah, but they're not universally accepted yet. So with what I've told you before about how to make decisions and evaluate with this, why did I go for fasting? Why did I pick that? Well, first off, I didn't have a lot of choice. Imagine if somebody stood in front of me and one person is holding a box and it's got 6 to 12 months on it, and another person's holding a box and it's got a question mark on it. Which box do you think I'm going to open? So I figured that the risk to me of cancer was greater than the risk of fasting. My argument. They'd already told me it was going to kill me. So then the second thing is, when I'm assessing why is there no evidence into fasting, doing DEH 313, how would you design the study? I know if I eat, so you certainly can't do any placebo effect. Okay, so fasting would be an extremely difficult thing to investigate. They've done it in mice, but in humans it would be difficult. The second thing is, who would fund it? When I fast, if everybody in the country did what I do, the supermarkets would lose 1/4 of their money every week. Because I don't spend any money when I fast. Now I do make up for it when I'm eating the good food. Right? So when I'm eating the organic stuff, I do make up for it that I spend there. Right? So nobody's going to make any profit out of what I do. So where's the research going to come from other than central government, in my opinion? No company's going to do it because they can't make money off it. But I hear that they are trying to make a pill that replicates exactly what happens when I fast. this was one of the things that helped me with fasting. So I'm down at Northern Soul meeting friends down at Newquay just after Plymouth, and this Northern Soul girl goes, "Dave, did you know that my husband died of cancer?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I want to tell you a story." I said, "Yeah." She said, we were in the chemotherapy waiting room, and this man came in that we'd met a couple of times in chemo waiting room, chemo, and he said, "Guess what I did last night?" And they said, "What?" He said, "I ate a whole tin of Quality Street." So when I was fasting, I would go, "No, you're not getting any." So every craving, I would talk to my cancer and go, "Ah, ah, 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 ah." Okay. Why did he eat that whole tin of Quality Street? He never would have done before that. At the same time, I also saw a YouTube video, and this is one of the problems of this area. There are a lot of people like me out there, and they do different YouTube things and things. But they're not being looked at. So, and it's by a New Zealand lady, and she had had a bad cancer when she was pregnant, but they didn't pick it up. And so just before she gives birth, they do identify it. She has the baby. They tell her she's got sort of 6 to 12 months to live, similar thing. But because her cancer was so bad, she couldn't eat, so that the fasting started accidentally. And she does a video and she tells about her procedure, and she says, "So my cancer came back again, and so my procedure is now I fast 7 days every month, water only fasting." And at the end of the video, the door opens and her 8-year-old daughter comes in behind. And that film, it's about 5 years old now, and she's still alive. So that was the moment I thought, right, I'm gonna try that. The very first fast that I did was for 10 days. I went to different places and got bloods done so that I was checking and monitoring everything. You'll see when I talk about this, I measured everything while I was doing what I did. And then after that, for 18 months, I did 7-day fasts a month. 3 weeks of eating, 1 week of fasting. I find it harder when I'm eating to stick to keto than I do to fast. Isn't that strange? When you fast, you get brighter and stronger because your body is not digesting food. Because all that energy that's used to digest food is not being used, it goes straight to your brain and straight to your limbs and muscles. Why would an animal evolve that gets stronger and cleverer when it's not had anything to eat? Because it's got to get some food. So to me that made perfect sense, that side of it. And I experienced it. I did get brighter and I did get stronger. People that don't believe that sort of story, I go, "What do you do Christmas afternoon?" Body can't cope with that much food. The first meal I eat when I come off a fast tastes delicious. It's cabbage soup, right? Because you have to be careful how you come off a fast. It absolutely tastes like the best meal I've ever had in my life. And that experience hasn't gone down. It still stays at the same level. First, when I had that cabbage soup. So my conversation between my unconscious and my conscious, he's eating again. Make him think it tastes brilliant and he'll eat more, right? And it works. When I come back off a fast, I do binge, and it's a well-known principle. That can only be, in my opinion, the unconscious going, make him eat more. Right, so reduce stress. So this is all the stuff that I did to reduce stress. Tai Chi and Qigong, it could be in exercises. The cold water therapy, I started doing every day. I hated it. So when there was the poster this morning and she said about doing things, that was the one thing that I didn't want to do. Everything else, fine, not a problem, cold water therapy, but you feel, anybody's not done it. And all I did was put the bath as cold as I can, get in, go there for 3 minutes, leave the door unlocked. My dog would always be straight outside the door wondering what the hell's going on in the bathroom, because you do shout. Right? But then you get used to it, come out here, you feel like you've been in the gym for an hour. It's absolutely incredible. And this was waking my body up to me. One of the things that I said to Neil the other night is that convinced that one of the things that's going on, as well as all the factors, is that we're actually, comfort is potentially killing us. Like the just eat sign. Because we're not putting our body under any stress. So that's, and I used to think I loved it. After you come out of the cold water therapy, it's brilliant. Nottingham, oops, event. Somebody said, one of the tutors said, the best cure for stress is the word no. And I asked Neil when I turned up, I said, could that possibly be you? And my memory is that it was you said that, and he thinks it possibly was. So I just said no a lot after I was diagnosed. And I sort of had a get out of jail free card from my family. I wasn't going to deal with any crap. I was on holiday. I had one focus, which was getting better. So I never did have to pull the card out. They'd know, okay. So I never got any, can you just, do you mind if? I was focused. Right? With your strategy thing, I was focused. Fred made the point the other day that he couldn't do mindfulness because he kept drifting. And that's sort of the whole point of mindfulness. And I remember a quote in one book where it said, Master, how soon will I be able to be in mindfulness and do it properly? And the master said, about 25 years. I said, well, what if I try really hard? He said, then it'll be about 50 years. So it is as much about noticing that your mind's drifting. So those of you that haven't done it, is just focus on the breath, and I could feel it straight away. You just focus on the breath instead of anything else. But your brain goes, what about getting home? Right? You just have to go, shut up, and focus back. That's what they say. Realising that you're not focused on the breath is an awareness. So the mindfulness people will tell you that. And then you just go back into the breath. So then I did 365 pictures, a project painting 365 pictures outdoors on the Southwest Coast Path in a year. Not one every day. 365 in a year, because there is no way that I could have said to my wife on the birthday or the kid's birthday, I'm just going out painting. So I did 2 on some days, but it was 365 in a year. Outdoors painting. And then when I was reading about mindfulness, I went, hang on. You were doing mindfulness. You were out there painting in the moment. You weren't worrying about the past or thinking about the future. You were in the moment. This has not been researched. There's lots of research, even in Daisy Fancott's brilliant book that's come out in the last couple of weeks about how the art cure, the science of how art can help our health. There's nothing about the add-on benefit of being outdoors. Lots about painting, lots about creating things, but nothing added on. Now my guess is that being out in nature, focusing on nature, while you're doing your mindfulness, it's got to be an added plus, do you know what I mean? So, but nobody's looked at it. But the reason why with Fred is because when you're out painting, if you drift, you know you drift, you're not looking at, so you come straight back into it, you've got better awareness. And when you're out there, if you're doing mindfulness, it's for 10 to 15 minutes. When I'm doing a painting, it's 3 hours, but I have done 6, 8 and 10 hours. You've got a different sort of perception after half an hour. When you're looking at the same thing and standing there, think how often people do that in life. How often you just sit, if it's not the telly, and just look at life and nature that's in front of you and look at it. You'll see something related to that in a sec. I want to try and just show you that. This is only going to take 1 minute and 30 seconds instead of the 6 hours that it took me. So this is what I do. I time lapse while I'm doing it. So just So radically changing your diet, taking control of your health. Taking control of your health does not mean doing the operation yourself. It means what you guys have been identifying all this weekend. It's exactly what Neil said about you plan a bleeding holiday, you plan buying your house, but you don't do anything about your health. That's what Kelly Turner means by taking control of your health. Following your intuition, right, stress, mindfulness, right, and all that thing I wrote in the paper. Using herbs and supplements. When I fast, I take vitamins. But one of my strengths of my story is since March 2023, I have not had any medication at all. Nothing. Releasing suppressed emotions, increasing positive emotions. You've seen I cry. So increasing positive emotions. What do you think that video was all about? What do you think when I'm out painting? Embracing social support. Again, the video with all the mates, making it real. Deepening your spiritual connection. She doesn't mean godly. She means an awareness that there's things beyond what we know. That sort of spirituality type thing. Having strong reasons for living. Don't assume that everybody is that committed to living. Engaging in resolution. Now she added in the last one after her first book called Radical Remission, because in her first book, everybody who survived, not all of them did physical exercise, some of them couldn't. But what she has identified is that they do at some point. Once they get better, they will immediately go into physical exercise. Okay, so that's the 10 Kelly Turner things. New Beautiful Life, Lindsay Johnson. So when I rang her one day and I said, how are you? She said, yeah, fine, it's my birthday tomorrow, and my friend rang me earlier and she said, what are you doing tomorrow? So bear in mind, this is the girl who said to me, welcome to New Beautiful Life. So my friend rang out and said, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, well, I'm going to walk the dog in the morning, then I'll make myself a nice lunch, and then I'll do a bit of painting. And a friend said, but you do that every day. And Lindsay said, exactly. So the next day on Facebook, when her birthday came up, I wrote, happy every day. It's a different frame of reference. You don't need to create a wonderful life. This is Dennis Potter, being interviewed in March 1994. He died in June 1994. He knows he's about to die.
No, the only thing you know for sure is the present tense. And that nowness becomes so vivid to me now that it's almost in a perverse sort of way, I'm almost serene. You know, I can celebrate life. Below my window in Ross, when I'm working in Ross, for example, there now this season, the blossom is out in full now there in the west early. There's a plum tree. It looks like apple blossom, but it's white. And looking at it, instead of saying, oh, that's nice blossom, you know, now, the last week, looking at it through the window when I'm writing, it is the whitest, frothiest, blossomest blossom that there ever could be, you know, and I can see it. And things are both more trivial than they ever were and more important than they ever were. And the difference between the trivial and the important doesn't seem to matter. The nowness of everything is absolutely wondrous. And if people could see that, you know, there's no way of telling you. You have to experience it, you know. But the glory of it, if you like, the comfort of it, the reassurance, not that I'm interested in reassuring people, you know, bugger that. The fact is that if you see the present tense, boy, do you see it. And boy, can you celebrate it, you know?
So I think he said it probably a bit better than I did. It's true. And it's like, because it's, like Lindsay said, a new beautiful life, it's when you realise what you've got. Okay, now I don't want to lose it, do I? Right? Because I'm now not dying of bringing cancer, am I? Right? No evidence of active cancer. How do I retain that? Right? How do I not take it for granted again? So, and just to say as well, we need to say this at this point, and because Alison said something and it just made me, in the last talk, I've got a friend who helped me at the start with lots of things, and she's now into longevity. Right? Big vogue thing at the minute, isn't it? Living as long as you can. David are doing all the same things that you did. Well, of course they would be. What was I trying to do? Stay alive. What are the people in longevity trying to do? Stay alive. So there you go. Very, very funny observation. But the world puts them into two boxes, and they're doing exactly the same stuff. They popped them into two different boxes. Okay, so that's where I am mentally. What about where I am physically? So this again is interesting for me. So we're talking December 2024, no evidence of active cancer. Now back to the much cheaper, every 5 months, CT scan, which only show the size of the mass. Okay, and it's just, you're stable, 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 stable. So that means that the CT scan is picking up a mass, but it's not active, right? Because it's staying the same size, then it's pretty certain to assume that there's no active cancer there. And so that's what the NHS do. Oh, you're stable, fine, come back in 3 weeks, stable, fine. So I pushed him on this, and my oncologist is now brilliant. He gave me 40 minutes of a phone call for this lecture for me to check with him things that I'm saying. Right? That's some commitment when he's got people dying around him and that. So he gave me that amount of his time. And where was I going there? So I pushed him and said, so it's been stable all this time then? And he went, well, no. He said, I can see that the scan in September 23 is definitely bigger than your scan now. So we're now talking December 25. So it's not stable, but just the reduction has been so small that they just say stable. Also, if it's stable, that's it, you're not going to get dealt with, so they'll just say stable rather than it's reduced slightly. And he said, when I look at them, they're definitely smaller. It is not usual for dead cancer cell to reduce of its own accord. That's what I've checked with him, that's what I've checked with lots of other people. That does not normally happen. It is. The only explanation I can provide for that is autophagy. And that's what happens during fasting. So they present. That cancer, dead cancer cell, is reducing without any medication at all since March 23. Again, I'm not 100% saying causality, but what else explains that? Because it doesn't normally happen. He did say to me on the same phone call, I can never say you're cured. And I said, well, mind you too. And there was a pause, and I said, I had this thing before. I don't want to go back to that life. And no way would I take my ball if he said to me, you're cured. What would I do? Would I go back to being controlled by Sainsbury's? You're not having it, right? You're not having it. I'm in a strange lands now, but I want to tell you one story. He sent me to Royal Marsden Hospital. David, would you be happy to do a trial? I said, yes, I will. They had a chat with me, they took my bloods, doctor and a nurse, and then they went, oh, you're stable. I went, yeah, oh, you can't be part of the trial if you're stable. And I actually thought they said a trial to start with. So that initially gave me the idea of, okay, so if I'm getting better, you're not looking at me. And I can't even be part of your trial, and I'm getting better. And do you remember the other day when Sarah said, it's hard to look at people when they've got good health before they get ill? And it's hard to do the research on those people. So, all I'm trying to do with what I'm doing here is to redress the balance and put some of those street lights on. So when we go to where I am now, is it not changing? Oh, it is changing. Okay, so we go back. There was me, if you remember, June, and there's me as the outlier. That's where we are now. I'm over here. Okay. I should have been dead back there. This is Jeff Redigan, Dr. Jeff Redigan.
I've seen illnesses return when people go back to toxic relationships. but I've also seen people get better and stay better. And these are not flukes or anecdotes. Identifiable principles exist among people, and we should be studying them. If I wanted to understand ultimate performance in sports, I would study Michael Jordan. I do not believe that he would take kindly to being called a fluke or an anecdote. If we want to understand ultimate performance and health, then we should be studying people like Claire and Dr. King.
Okay, so I'm going to leave us about 20 minutes. If people want to go and we've just got 10 at the end, you will get my cards so you could all contact me. I need your help. Okay? I think I have a moral responsibility to help people. I do not intend to be, I will deliberately be seen not to make a single penny out of this. I should be dead. So my attempts at the moment are to be through the Facebook that you saw and through when I'm painting, I hand out leaflets, to hit people the day when they're told that they've got cancer, they just remember, there's that guy. He might be able to show me. But I have to do it ethically. It has not to be false hope. It has to be real hope. But I'm convinced that we can do this. So, I lived in Plymouth. Plymouth used to have a pier, and it was bombed during the war. And about 10 years ago, an artist had done an impression of the pier, and it was going around on all sorts of social media. It was being promoted by the local council, and they were asking about the pier. And when the picture went up, everybody, the comments were this: oh, what an awful thing. I wouldn't want to look at that all day. Can you imagine walking past the seafront and you're looking at that pier? Who's drawn that? It just looks so ugly. A pier is not for looking at, it's for looking from.